Welcome to another episode of the Dentology podcast, where we discuss the business of dentistry. In this podcast series, we'll be discussing all the non-clinical aspects of dentistry, from goodwill values, finance, marketing, how to buy and sell a dental practice, mindset, through to where you can invest your money in team management issues. My name is Andy Acton, and I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Strevens. Let's jump straight into it. Welcome to the latest episode of Dentology, and today we're joined with Brad Thornton, who's the principal of the Ivory Dental Practice in Leeds. He's also a serial entrepreneur and investor in different businesses and a family man. Now, I got to know Brad through his own podcast, the Dental Business Podcast, which he started back in 2019. In fact, that was the inspiration for us starting our own Dentology podcast. So I should thank Brad for we wouldn't be sitting here doing this if it wasn't you that dragged me onto your show at the beginning. So
we're not paying you. Thanks.
And so, I mean, our paths have crossed in a number of ways through the podcast, and we've shared rooms on Clubhouse, but we've never actually met. And I think that kind of is the start of the modern world, isn't it, these days? You have different relationships with people in different ways, and it's fabulous that we get to do this. So welcome, Brad. How are you doing today? Are you good?
Yeah, good. And thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward. How many episodes have you done now?
So I think we've probably recorded something like 20. So we try and do it in a style where we kind of batch them up and record a few in one go, only because once you've done the setup, and it's going really well. I'm really enjoying it. You get to meet interesting people. You hear stories that I'd never heard before. Hopefully people get to tell their own story that helps other people in the profession. We've talked to some people who are dentists. We spoke to non-dentist practice owners. We spoke to people from the trade. We spoke to advisors. It's a real mixed bag of people, and it's been really interesting so far.
Yeah, well, we didn't want it to be too sort of dentistry, because with the best will in the world, it can be a little bit dull. So it's like saying to people, there's more stuff to go around dentistry, and people might learn stuff on the one we did on investment. It applies to anybody. You don't have to be a dentist to learn how to want to know how to do investment and how investment works on a very high level. But no, it's been fascinating.
Yeah, no, the feedback.
It's a bit like internet dating, really, because you see all these people that most of them we've never met yet physically.
Yeah.
So could you give us a bit of background on yourself, Brad, in terms of your history, how you ended up in dentistry, why you ended up as a principal on the business side? What's your journey and pathway through to where we are today?
Yeah, I mean, I guess starting at the point where I decided I wanted to be a dentist. I mean, I've, I guess been quite a competitive person. I've done a lot of sport in the past, and did reasonably well at school, but I never really thought about what I wanted to do. I actually never really gave it much thought whatsoever. And then it was actually still quite early on, but our tutor in third year of school, so year 9 of high school, so we were choosing GCSEs with 12, I think 13. And he said, right, decide what you want to do for your job and then make a decision, choose your GCSEs and basically go from there, set your path now.
On that part though, Brad, there's a fundamental flaw, isn't there? That you were obviously very clear in your thinking. I'm making some assumptions of what you're going to say. But to put 12, 13-year-olds in a position that says, decide your path and now choose the subjects based on that, that's not reasonable, is it?
Choose the next 56 years of your life or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, what I found interesting later on was when I was speaking to friends in other classes, that wasn't like the party line. It was literally his opinion.
Excellent.
He'd gone rogue. He'd gone rogue, hadn't he?
Yeah, but it worked out for me actually in the end, because I actually took it seriously, went and researched, found dentistry that I thought was interesting and looked like it paid well. I even, part of my decisions for GCSEs, it was like, right, let's split all the sciences up. I'll do triple science or whatever the decision was. And my physics teacher said, don't do that because you're not that good at physics. But I was like, well, no, because I'm doing dentistry. I need to do this. So I did it, then got an A* in physics. So I kind of proved him wrong.
Is that a theme in your life, proving people wrong?
You know what? Certainly for my exam, I don't know whether it's a proving wrong, but there's a certain sense of proving something. I don't know what that is. And then the same happened in my AS levels and A levels, predicted lower grades than I got, but, just worked hard enough to make sure that I got what I needed to.
But that's really unusual, because the data around predicted grades, particularly A levels, are phenomenal, because there's so much data that goes into the GCSE pot. They know that there's going to be a drop off from GCSE to A level, and the predicted grades tend to be absolutely on the money. So going back to that kind of achieving over and above, you obviously did something significantly different between your GCSEs and your AS and your A levels.
Feels like
to buck that trend.
Feels like a chilled individual with confidence in their own ability to myself. In the fact of, I'll do my bit. Oh right, I've got to push a little bit harder. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. I guess the confidence, definitely. The feeling that it was definitely more to give for those exams, because there was something next. I had this path. I knew what I wanted to do at that point, and to be a dentist is what I needed to do. So that's kind of what I did. And then went into dental school. Again, I mean, I failed one of the courses on the first year, resat that. But it was that summer when I retook that exam that I figured out how I retain information, how I learn, and how I study, and kind of understood myself a bit more.
That's interesting.
And after that, university was fine. And I mean, when I was in VT year, I was looking at dental practice. I went to view one whilst I was in my VT year.
Wow. You're a ballsy young man, aren't you?
I know. I can imagine turning up with a white shirt, perfectly clean shaven.
Just going back to your first year at dental school, and you failed that exam. Was that a bit of a reality check for you?
Yeah, it was actually, because I'd probably not failed much up until then. I've always been, I mean, when I first set up my Facebook account, it's quite embarrassing actually. I had like my motto was work hard, play hard, train hard, so everything else is easy. That was like my thing. And my first year of uni was that. It was, I'd spend all day at uni working hard, but then when we went out pretty hard as well.
Did you play super hard?
Everything was quite not excessive, but was sort of 100%. There was 100% in everything.
Yeah.
And that was a bit of a slap around the face. I was like, because loads of friends, they were going on a Europe Interrail trip, and I had to stay back and study, and it was a bit like.
It's a bit like we did a clubhouse with Kish and Gin, didn't we? Of Smile Clinic Group, and they were saying, they came to the end of the first year and they walked up to the board and they'd failed, and they were like, "Oh, oops."
But I always, I've said it before, that everything, no matter how tragic something is in life, if you look back, you'll always find positive outcomes.
Yeah, definitely.
Even the most tragic of things that happen can sort of influence positive aspects of life. And if I hadn't have failed, I'd have carried on in year two, doing what I was doing and studying the way I was. And actually, I'd have found university a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
I certainly found myself that summer.
And it's a brutal lesson, but we learn so much more from failure than the success.
Yeah.
It's harsh, but the reality is, if you just keep succeeding in everything, you don't learn and grow and adapt as much as you do if something doesn't go.
The interesting thing though is you have to, it's quite interesting. Your Brad saying, well, that's what I learned from that was adversity and I moved forward. But you have to have that approach to that, otherwise failure crushes you.
Yeah,
you've got to have that sort of positive mindset that says, okay, that's a little bump in the road, but I can overcome it.
So anyway, you're in your white shirt, you've turned up to view a practice and you're a foundation dentist. Pick up the story.
Did you have a high voice?
It was up and down. It was in Morecambe, of all places.
Wow, interesting choice.
Yeah, and it was.
Was that a wise choice?
Very good, very good. Brad's quite young. He might not get that.
No,
reference.
He got it.
I'm doing this.
It's when you slowly disappear out of shot.
It goes black. I mean, didn't have any idea what we're doing. I thought it was almost like a trial run, I guess. Just probably didn't have any intention of buying it, although I did feel as though, well, if I wanted to, I think we could figure this out. I think I could figure it out.
Wow.
I mean, nothing came of it. but that sort of set an intention. I always sort of felt that I would probably own a practice, have a business, only because I felt that if I was going to kind of have a certain trajectory, that's kind of what I needed to do. I never felt that being an associate forever was kind of what I'd be doing, what I'd be looking to do.
So what was the gap between being an associate and owning a practice? How long were you an associate for?
So I did VT and then 1.5 years. Well, no, I just finished my second VT +2.
Right.
I just turned 26.
Okay.
Wow.
When
that's quick out of the blocks.
Yeah. Did you buy an established practice, Brad?
Yeah.
What was that like getting funded? I mean, hey, you've only been doing this for 2.5 years.
Yeah, well, I was a high-grossing associate. I had an NHS contract. I mean, I assume this certainly seemed like this was one of the reasons. But I'd done my VT, did my associate, did 1 year of that, and in my second year, one of the other associates, halfway through the first year of associateship, one of the other associates was leaving. And because I weirdly had not actually taken all my holiday either, I chose not to. I'd overachieved on my contract, so the practice gave me 50% of another associates as well. So I was doing 1.5 contracts, doing locuming, doing some private work.
So your personal growth looked impressive.
Yeah, cut my hours cut my lunch down to half an hour because I didn't need an hour. And I was sat around upstairs and I was like, I don't need an hour. And then, when it came to looking at going to the bank, I had good accounts.
Wow.
Used everything I'd saved for tax, everything I had. My parents remortgaged part of their property as well so that they could contribute to my deposit.
Wow.
And just went for it.
Just on that point and your family, is there entrepreneurial flair in the Thornton household? Do you come from a long line of entrepreneurs?
Chocolatiers.
No, I don't. I've thought about this quite a bit, just because I think I've kind of tried to analyze myself a little bit, try and control my emotions and figure out why I do what I do to try and maybe, refine myself a bit. Mm-hmm. And I thought about this because my brain can be quite restless and chaotic and looking for ideas and,
I got that in our phone call this morning.
I know, yeah. And I think rather than having entrepreneurial influence, I think there's certain things that have rubbed off, like, work ethic. And I mean, my mom, every time I was ill when I was a kid, would say, well, go to school. And if you're still ill later, the teacher will ring me so you can come back. So I think there was definitely a sense of showing up, always kind of showing up, work ethic, and just competitiveness as well. Like, I've done sport. My dad taught karate from a young age, and I've done a lot of sports growing up and martial arts and stuff. And I think I've always been competitive. And my dad will probably tell you that it pushed me a bit too much, but he certainly pushed me down that route.
But where does that drive come from? Because you're very modest and you gloss over it. You were the under-17 European Taekwondo champion.
Yeah.
So it's not like, you used to go and play football with your mates. It was a very high level. And where did that drive come from? Was that drive, and I don't mean this in a nasty way, was that imposed on you by your father because of his involvement? Did it come from you? Did you get dragged along? Where did it? Because obviously that's carried through to your business and entrepreneurial life as well. That drive. Yeah,
I think because I wasn't quite good at first, but I was a black belt at 9. I'd got my second black belt at 12. By that point, I'd been training for nearly 9 years. And I was winning the British Championships and doing the Europeans. I fought in Vegas for the USA Nationals at like 16 years old. Fought in the Worlds, came runner-up. Like, there was loads of stuff that I'd done.
Wow.
And I was like, you know what, I'm actually pretty good at this. So it was always like, I trained 6 days a week for years. And it was very much about, I guess it was just it was in my makeup. It's just what I did. My dad was, he was aware of that, and he did push me quite a bit, but I was receptive to it because I did like to compete. I got nervous as hell. Maybe it was the pressure I put on myself as well, but I think as I was competitive, the fact that I could win, that just kind of, it was like this positive feedback that I just kept going for. And then when I eventually got to the point where I went to uni, I think it was the same year I won the Europeans, the same year that Darren Campbell, I think it was, won the 100-meter European Olympic. European, the same year. And I was in our local paper, and he was all over national news, and I was like, my parents aren't, they've worked hard, but we've got a bit of sponsorship. It was difficult, and it was a hard graft, and I was like, I need to figure out where this is going to go. And I thought, well, I'll go to uni, I'll be a dentist, because that's really where I should go. And I guess that competitiveness and that drive and everything just got transferred,
channeled into something else.
Well, it's a behaviour thing, isn't it? And I guess it's not just about sport. It kind of just courses through your veins, doesn't it? You just get passionate about all the things that you do. And I mean,
and you must enjoy it. I think that's the other thing that goes with it, isn't it? If you don't enjoy it, it's just like, why bother? You can put all the commitment in, but then I think you have to have that sort of core enjoyment of either whatever you're doing or the success that goes with it to keep doing it. Otherwise, the danger is you sort of just filter out a bit, don't you? Because you're not really committed to it.
I think the enjoyment is that guy who shovels the coal into the engine. That's your enjoyment, isn't it? And if you're trundling along and you don't have that, you just run out of steam. You can be you can try your best, but if you're not enjoying it, it doesn't matter.
It's so interesting. When you were saying earlier, I was thinking that the what I hear is that no matter what you do or did, it's that thing about being the best at what you do, whether it be making a cup of tea. In that, I want to do it right. I want to get it. There we go. I want to get it right, and it's that being the best at what you're doing. It might not be the world's most exciting thing, but it's being the best. It's wanting to. I can do this. I can really get this right.
Talks about that. The guy that was the Formula One driver. He says exactly that. He says everything he does, he wants it to be the best in that moment. So whether he's cooking dinner or ironing his clothes or whatever it is, he says, we should always give everything, because if you then really enjoy all those small moments, life becomes more enjoyable as opposed to waiting for these big things that you take enjoyment from.
Yeah. And I guess, David, when you've had success at a certain level, I guess you're not your expectations, but it's not unusual to think, well, maybe if you do this, business, like business ideas or practice. Like if I thought about, when I said to the girls, we've put it on hold at the moment, but when we're looking to get reviews, Google reviews, I was saying to my accounts manager who has an office upstairs, I was like, you know what? I want to try and have the most number of reviews. I want it to be the highest reviewed dental practice in the country. It's not going to happen now, but thinking on a national scale or a big scale, at least if you aim for that and try.
Yeah.
Oh, but like you say, if you put an audacious target out there and you go after it, if you fall short, you're going to be a long way further forward than you would have been, and you'd have gone past an awful lot of other people on the way.
We say aim for the sky, don't we? If you aim for the sky, you might hit the top of the trees. But if you aim for the trees, you might hit the bottom of the trunk.
Just trip up.
That's right, Oops, there's a rope.
By the way, we're nowhere near that.
No, but it's great to have it as a long-term ambition. And that's the other thing. I think very often we get caught up in very short-term goals. Whereas it's nice to have a real long-term view as to where it could end up. And then you put in place the short-term things that kind of get you there. So as a principle, very often we also talk to lots of dentists and in particular lots of principals, and many of them find just owning and running a dental practice completely and utterly consumed.
Yeah.
They find that dominates their world. They have no space for anything else. They're with patients. They're running their business. They can barely have a life outside of that world. You've obviously enabled a structure and an infrastructure within your life where you have your dental practice, you have your family. I know you've been involved in other businesses. You're continually looking at new ideas and investing in new ventures. Is there a system to how you manage that so that you're able to do so much, or is it literally just you just work relentlessly? Because I'm sure lots of people will look at it and say, well, I just don't know how you do it. I know we've all got 24 hours, but mine just seems to get filled up with a bunch of other stuff. So how does Brad do it?
Brad's got 28.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd probably ring fence family stuff. I think that's something that's evolved quite a bit. I must admit that since having kids, there are certain red lines that have been drawn in that weren't there before.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to stay later than my proposed finish time to see patients and to do and all that stuff. But now, when I finish, I'm gone. That's it. Because especially when I work till 7, I need to be home for the kids. So there are certain red lines.
So great to have those, Brad. So great to put those in.
And you know what? It's listening to guys like you. You know, I mean, Andy's sort of talking to you about and just getting just little nuggets from you. It sort of does make me realise things that you need to put in place, because otherwise stuff just gets carried away with you. You end up being, if you're not proactive, you're reactive, aren't you? You're not. You know, you need to kind of make the effort. And as a principal, it's really easy to be reactive because everybody wants you to do stuff for them, and it's like, but yeah, I think, being a practice principal is difficult, and having everything within the practice that is in theory your responsibility can be quite a burden. But I mean, I have learned over the years that I think I've got a limited amount of pressure and stress that I can take. And actually, if I've got a few different projects, it's not multiplied up, it's dispersed between them. And I actually feel calmer if I've got some allocated time that I can spend to take my brain away from the practice. I actually find it's quite helpful. And my early mornings are just a godsend to me. I mean, even though I have read the 5 a.m. Club, I have read Miracle Morning, I've read all of that. I was already doing it. So I was kind of reading this going, yep. I agree with that. Yep. So for me, the time comes, and it's priorities as well. You know, you don't manage time, you manage your priorities. So it's about knowing what you want to do, trying to focus until you finish it, and delegating. The good thing about a principal, having a practice, is that you've got some human asset there. You've got people who can actually do things that you can delegate to. And it's about learning how to do that properly.
And trusting,
letting go. You know, not if you micromanage, you're not giving them opportunity to shine, but you're also not identifying weakness. So you kind of need to delegate to figure out either one.
So in a weird way, whilst lots of people find being a principal all-consuming, are you saying that as a principal, it actually affords you a degree of freedom to look at things outside of the practice because you've got this infrastructure that's working away in the background to give you that space to step away?
Yeah, I do. Certainly it's like having people and staff. That's really helpful. Plus, I've got associates. We're in a position now where, and there was a good few years of seriously hard graft. You know, when I walked in at 9 a.m. on September the 1st, I think it was. I mean, I was walking down the street towards the front door. I'd taken a day off work from my associate job to start my principal job because there was a slight overlap. Right. And I'd not received the confirmation from the solicitor yet. I put my hand on the door handle, opened it, read it was like the universe was speaking, and I read the email as I opened the front door saying, "Congratulations, you are now the owner of."
Oh, wow.
Morning. They actually didn't know I was coming. One of the previous associates had a neon windowsill, and he was cleaning the inside of one of the windows upstairs.
And he went, "Look, I've got an email that says."
Morning. Get down from there. But it was. I mean, I had some huge ambition, and I thought that it would be really easy. And effectively, I'd kind of spoke with the bank and gone, right, well, this is my gross. I'll do that here. These are, and it was just like X, Y, Z, bang, done. Yeah. That's just what I've got to do. The books weren't that busy.
So what was the reality like?
Oh, yeah, the staff were paid every Friday with an envelope of cash.
Oh, wow.
That gives you an idea.
Because that's not that long ago, is it?
This was only back in 2010.
2010, yeah.
Flip.
All the cash that was taken by the practice was kept and then distributed at the end of the week.
Oh, it's like a mill, isn't it? It's like a mill where you turn up and that little man gives you a brown envelope, and that's to go and spend your beer money.
That's it. But that kind of gives you a flavour of it. And I, being sort of wet behind these, didn't really know what I was doing. My due diligence, I was sat on my room floor with two massive folders, looking page by page of due diligence and going, right, yeah, cool, that looks good. Yep, that all, not really understanding what I was looking at.
You're probably not really too sure what you're looking at.
We spoke to somebody else on another episode, and I was saying that I genuinely believe that naivety is a superpower. Yeah. I think naivety in business is a great thing to have, because if we really knew everything that was coming down the line, you just talk yourself out of doing so much stuff. Yeah, if you really knew all the challenges that you were going to have coming down the line as a business owner in those first periods, you might have thought more deeply about it, because it would just feel and sound overwhelming. So that naivety of sitting on the floor with your two envelopes of due diligence and just going, well, it looks okay to me. That I think sometimes you need that. You need that to keep going.
Yeah, and just that gives you a sort of an idea of what the practice was like. It was fully private. They had Demplan, and I had to work hard for every patient, build the reputation. I took over. I mean, the guy who I've replaced, because the previous owner stayed on, his mate from uni, and then the third dentist surgery had left 6 months previous to that. So his diary had just fizzled out. He was doing 4 days anyway, and I went in and I opened up 6 days. So I was just available all the time, and just kind of worked to just build it up.
And how did you find it? I mean, now we've moved into almost like a new renaissance where there's lots of young entrepreneurs and business owners. You see lots of people kind of almost late teens, early 20s who are owning and running really successful businesses. But back in 2010, what age were you back then, Brad? You mid-late? Yeah, so as a business owner of a dental practice in 2010, as a 26-year-old person, you really were an outlier. You weren't somebody that fitted the mold. How did that feel, and how were you treated as somebody at that age in that position?
Yeah, I think part of me, it felt just normal, like it was quite a comfortable position. There was a little bit of imposter syndrome as well.
Uh-huh.
I'd come from quite a sort of high neglect area of Bradford, doing my associate position, to Horsforth, quite an affluent area where I might have a judge coming through or a consultant surgeon as a patient, and I'm the new owner as a 26-year-old guy with what was longer and fuller blonde spiky hair.
Wow.
And just part of me thinking, but then just kind of realised, well, actually, one is because, of course, you're in that situation, and you've got there for a reason. It didn't happen by. I wasn't gifted anything.
It wasn't chance, was it?
Exactly. Yeah. My parents helped me out, but I paid them back. It was a loan they got on my behalf, and then I paid them back.
Yeah.
So it was sort of, there was no family money. I wasn't given it. It was not. It was just I'd worked and I'd got it, and I thought, well, actually, you know what? I've got here.
You've earned it by right, isn't it?
Yeah, so I became more comfortable with that. I think quite a lot of people who I went to university with felt that it was maybe expected. I don't think it seemed like it was too much of a surprise.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because you wonder whether some of them would have thought, 26, you're mad, you're too young. But obviously you'd created this aura about you that people knew what you were like. So therefore, when you actually followed through, it's like, we thought you'd probably do that. That's fascinating.
And so you bought the business, but obviously that wasn't enough, because since then you've started other businesses, you've invested in other businesses. I know you've got other bits and pieces in the pipeline. Why at that point didn't you just say, I'm just going to have a phenomenal dental practice, and there you go? What kind of dragged you off in that direction? Because I think dentistry does enable people to be entrepreneurial, but that doesn't mean that everybody in dentistry is entrepreneurial.
Yeah, I think with a dental practice, you actually get to scratch that itch a bit, don't you? You know, because you've got a bit of marketing, you've got a bit of this, you've got a bit of that, and it all kind of. My initial kind of business ideas and things that I did in those first sort of 5 or 6 years were quite linked to practice. So it was HTML 105. You had to get TST strips in your autoclave. You had to pouch everything. You had to do all this stuff. And I was like, right, if I had a business that did this, then I'll buy off my own business, but then sell to others. So that company, I mean, it still exists now. It's Verify Plus. They sell through CTS. 6-7-figure business. It did pretty well. Sort of whitening as well. A tooth whitening company that still is going now. Toothpaste sold in Boots. All the whitening stuff. And that was again because I was like, well, if you can have these businesses that are linked, you can benefit from other dentists, but also you can reduce your overheads.
It's a great casualness, though, Brad, to be honest, isn't it? You know, I wasn't aware of your sort of business dynamics, and it's like, a toothpaste and a tooth whitening and the pouching off. I think it's great because you have to have that mentality to say, well, hang on, what about? Oh, I could do this, I could do that. That's brilliant.
And I think sort of how things have evolved over the years. Where I'm at now, it's about things that are going to benefit dentistry. You know, it's what is going to benefit the industry. You know, we're at a point where I think the industry's taking a battering. And, you know, is there things that can be done to just improve dentistry and what are pain points and what are things that would make people's lives easier? How can we improve certain elements? So the things that I'm sort of dealing with at the moment and ideas that we've got is kind of around that. It's problem solving and it's improving. Things have to be exciting, though. You know, we need to do something that's exciting as well.
So, have all your ventures been in or around the dental profession?
The successful ones have. There's been a couple of other ones that are non-dental, so e-com stuff and supplements, which were me getting excited about something, you know, investing in ideas and working with people, and it kind of fizzles out because it's not. I don't think it's what my core. It's that problem solving. It's stuff that I understand.
Yeah. I was going to say, is it perhaps not coincidental that the ones that do well are in the market that you're invested in, you understand, you're passionate about, and the other ones were opportunities that look good on first glance, or you know, the person behind it was very enthusiastic or quite persuasive, but it didn't really strike a chord with you. Yeah,
no, you've hit the nail on the head. It's kind of. I mean, there was one that was dental related, which was lead generation stuff, and we generated leads for practices. We worked about 6 or 7 practices around the country, and the idea was to grow, and it was actually working quite well. But that was a reflection on, you know, finding the right person to be part of a company with, and making sure that you've got alignment with your ideas, and
you have to market the crap out of it, don't you, to get that number of people to ring that number or email that. Well, because we had a similar thought, but when we started to look at it, we said to really make a big dent, you're going to have to throw so much money at it to be able to generate it. And we found that some of the dentists weren't particularly keen on getting referrals, or more importantly, paying for referrals. And we just thought that actually it probably just not something that is our bag, really, just outside of our skill set.
Yeah, I mean, what I always tend to do with ideas, I'll kind of think of the best possible outcome. It's like, how could this end up? If this worked really well, is this a good idea? And then sort of track backwards. Look at it optimistically rather than pessimistically. And I think sometimes that historically that's made me leap a bit too quickly. But you sort of learn from that, and you get to pick up on the signs where you're like, actually, maybe this isn't something that's going to work.
But also, I think if you leap too quickly, I think it was Barack Obama that said, somebody was asked about, as a president, how you make decisions, and he said 51%. When as soon as you get to 51%, make a decision. And move forward and be prepared to make another decision and change your position if you need to. But he said, if you just keep waiting, sure, you've got all the data and all the information, it will be too late. So I think, yes, there are risks in perhaps moving too quickly, but I think at least you're making a decision that something's happening, and then you can change your position if you need to down the line.
Yeah.
Which is a smart thing.
Yeah, I think, analysis paralysis, if you spend too long. I don't regret anything that hasn't worked out. There's always been things that I've learned to do with certain marketing strategies and engaging audiences and stuff that can be then brought into dentistry. And it's just that, you kind of take from all these different areas, and then you end up subconsciously creating a learned experience, don't you? And
there's always a takeaway, isn't there? From whatever it might be, there's always a takeaway. Whether it's I'm not going to do that again, or that little bit worked somewhere in there, but the rest of it didn't work. There's always a takeaway to learn from.
So obviously, I see you as being pretty much on the edge of the entrepreneurial world in dentistry. Most people within dentistry, we fall into different groups and different camps, and there are lots of people who are very entrepreneurial. You're definitely in that camp, but I see you as being towards the edge of that. So what would you say are the key ingredients to living an entrepreneurial life but safely? What would you say are the key ingredients that people need to factor into their assessment if they're at the stage where they're thinking about wanting to do more from a business perspective? What's worked for you?
I think I've not done this all the time, but I do think this concept of single tasking is important. It's really easy. I think if your brain is wired a certain way that you try and do a lot, or you've got like this, what is it, like startup syndrome, where it's like, right, we'll start that, boom, right, we'll start that, boom, and then you lose your excitement and it just goes and it fizzles out. So really try and single task. Try and finish something to the point where it can be delegated, or delegated out, or get some element of completion with it. I think that's really important. I do think, which I don't think this is a contradiction, but I think that always be optimistic. It's like what you were saying. Be cautious and try to choose your sort of where you're going to put your money, especially your money, your time, your money, your energy. Try and choose that wisely, but also be optimistic. I think rather than looking at the number of issues you might have on the way, or the problems or the obstacles, kind of think, right, well, this is what I want to do. This is the outcome that I'm looking at. What is it that I need to do to get to that? Think optimistically and say, right, well, is that a good idea? Is that a good outcome? And what do I need to do to get there? And
I think on that particular point, I think a lot of people, because that's kind of just a core mindset thing, isn't it? And I think lots of people really struggle with that. That's not a default setting for lots of people. They have to work really hard to think and be optimistic in terms of their outlook. And I think the more you do things, the more you try things, and the more things work out, the more you see that being optimistic works in your favour. But I think it is I think it's one of those muscles you need to work at a bit before it becomes second nature.
Yeah, and similarly, I guess, know what your exit is as well. Like if you've got these ideas, kind of have an idea of where the end is going to be. What is it that you're going to do? If you're thinking of a supplemental business on the side, because your dental practice really, as a dentist, you kind of, unless you're highly successful somewhere else, your dental practice is probably going to be the thing that's going to feed everything else, or your dental. If you're an associate, your dental pay packet, you're going to struggle to beat that for a heck of a long time with anything else.
Definitely.
But so know where your exit is. Are you going to be slogging away for 10 years or 15 years? Just what's the end goal? I think a lot of people don't think of that. And take the emotion out of it and say, right, well, where's this going? What do I want the end point to be? And then almost set a target and stick to it.
Have you, through your business life, have you needed to have those conversations with other people at the beginning as well to make sure that your interests are aligned? Because Chris and I, we've got 6-7 different businesses with a number of different business partners, and some of them at some point may well get sold, but having those conversations with the other people involved in those businesses early on is quite important. I didn't know whether you've been in that situation.
The one that jumps out the most is, and this was probably the first one, was where that conversation wasn't had at the beginning.
Right.
It was had a few years in, when we were at a point where, it was a multi-million-pound business. And I was like, right, well, I've got 20% of this. What's what are we, where are we going with it? What's the point at which we're going to hit it? And, my impression was that we were all going to sell. But actually, there was 3 directors. One of them, who was the MD, wasn't really an entrepreneur. Really nice guys, got nothing against them. Friends now. But he's an entrepreneur, liked the idea of a job and didn't want to sell. And
this was just going to pay him forever.
And I was like, this is and that was one of the main reasons why I actually exited out of that business. It was for that reason. I was like, well, I'll exit now. We'll do a share buyback. The business will buy my shares. And I'll just get out. Even though I think that business has got huge potential and is no doubt doing a lot better than it was when I was there now. It was like selling a dental practice, and I'd done well out of it, and I can reassign that money somewhere else. So I felt happy about that.
Yeah. But a good lesson for yourself as well. It sounds to me like you wouldn't end up in a situation where you wouldn't be having that conversation very early on with a potential partner.
Yeah, and that was it. And at that point, I was like, this needs to be more explicit. We need to be open about this really early on. So it's a conversation that I'd have quite early on now when talking to people.
We say it to guys when they do partnerships. We say, it's a bit like a prenup. Get your deal sorted before you actually sign it, when you all like each other, rather than trying to sort it out later on down the line when either someone's circumstances change. Because if you've got it written down, then the answer is that's the way it works, and it removes stress, it removes hassle. But a lot of people forget that bit.
But also, it's inevitable. A business relationship at some point is going to come to an end. And whether it's through, a general agreement to sell, or one party sells, or it's acrimoniously, however it comes about, it is going to end at some point. Therefore, logic says if you have that conversation right at the beginning and kind of have a pathway of what that looks like, it makes sense. But then I think some people, either whether it's through naivety or just potentially thinking it's an awkward conversation, just never quite get round to it.
I think it's as Brad says, they don't think about the exit. I think you're dead right in the fact of people don't think about what the end game is and how you finish it, so they never explore the getting it documented before it happens.
I say the exact same thing as that. Make decisions when you like each other. So that when you don't, or if you don't, you've got something to go back to.
Definitely.
And it's I've had a few legal bits and pieces over the years off the back of not having that, and it's just too much of a headache.
It's a headache, isn't it? It's a stress, let alone a cost. It just does really.
Yeah, and also going back to that single task thing, which I love. I think multitasking's hugely overrated. But if you're involved in some sort of, legal battle or dispute or whatever, in that moment, that's your focus, that's your task. So all the other positive things you're trying to get to and all the opportunities and the optimism, you get drawn back. And it also affects your mood for that day. It's then hard to suddenly flick yourself into that really positive mood of doing things because you've been dealing with something that's contentious.
Yeah. You've one of the reasons I do my videos for you, Andy, in the morning is actually the way I deal with a Monday is the way my week goes. The way I am in the morning dictates my day. The way, the first thing tends to be how I carry the rest of the day or the week.
Yes.
So, I work hard to make sure that my morning is high energy.
Yeah. And I think there's huge, there's a saying, isn't there? Did you get out of bed on the wrong side? Yeah. Because it's that thing where if things don't start well, and we all decide how our day goes, nobody else does it. We do it on ourselves. And if you wake up and consciously say, I'm going to have a good day and these are the things I'm grateful for and this is how my day is going to look, you're much more likely to have a good day and good things will happen to you.
I'm just thinking what Brad's car playlist is.
It's high octane. It's high. I won't ask him, but he does a great Goggins. He does a great David Goggins, believe me.
I could just imagine.
See, I thought these videos were for my benefit, but they're actually for your benefit, aren't they?
Oh yeah. It's that's it, and like people around you, bring people up, and you just feed off each other, don't you?
Oh, completely. Yeah. I think the stuff you're doing is great. I think your style's nice. I think the success you had pretty young in the sporting world, there's an absolute link between that and what you're doing now in that focus, that drive, that quest for success. I think there's so many things that just join up, and I think there's so much more that you're going to crack on with as well.
I guess that. Yeah, cheers, mate.
No, it's like I say.
We should end that with a hoo-ah.
Well, I think a lot of the reason we wanted to do this was to tell stories like that.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Have a bit of fun, have a giggle, have a chat, but also inspire people. Those things about being optimistic. There's a lot of people that get caught in kind of Groundhog Day. They just keep kind of circling around the plug hole and they're not quite sure where they're going. Whereas I think if you hear stories of people who are doing things and are taking it, with energy and passion, if one person listens to this and it uplifts them, or they have a better day, or it gives them that confidence to do the thing they're thinking about, then that's been.
But it's not a blinding revelation. Some people seem to think there needs to be like this sort of crucial, one defining moment in my life when I was on the edge of death or something. And the answer is, okay, you can still have a defining moment when you're on the edge of death, but it doesn't have to be quite so dramatic. No, you can actually change the way you do stuff.
It's just layers of the onion. Like I say, listening to you today, Brad, all the things that you've done and have happened, they've all added to your confidence and your skill set and your experience and, looking for more opportunities. And it just keeps building out. And each time you do something and it goes well, it gives you that confidence and, the inner confidence and the resources to go and do the next thing. And I think people will take a lot from that.
Yeah, sorry, layers of onions always makes me think of Shrek, because doesn't he say, donkeys say to Shrek, ogres are like onions or something. So whenever anyone says it's like an onion, in my head I instantly see donkey in a field.
Is this where you do your impression of donkey?
So we I know you've got a patient later on, Brad, we won't keep you, but when we wrap up, we always ask people two questions, and we always say that if you could be the fly on the wall in a situation, if you could put yourself on a wall and just observe a situation, is there a situation that you'd love just to be there watching?
You know what? I think rather than a situation, I think it's more, someone, you mentioned Barack Obama. Someone of power, political power, business, someone like a leader, but I think someone like him, he's talking about that 51%. I'd like to see what that looks like in practical terms. What is his process? The amount of responsibility, whether you're political or not, whether you believe in what people do or not, but actually the amount of pressure and
it's global stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like we think we've got stressful lives, but to be able to observe somebody who can, not only sort of deal with that, but, in some cases, like, overcome a significant amount of stress and make some decisions. I'd just love to see what that looks like.
And also live with the consequences of those decisions as well, isn't it? Because in that moment, you make that decision, and then the potential ramifications. We make decisions within our own businesses that affect our environment, the people we work with, our teams or our families. But
no one dies.
No, to be making decisions which could affect the course of the planet. That's big, isn't it? Yeah, no, that'd be a fascinating thing to watch.
And that sort of 51%, or that decision change. You know what? In a modern world, people don't really allow that. They don't allow experimentation and they don't allow testing. It's right. You need to know what's going on, and if it's if you change your mind, then it's wrong, and you made a mistake.
Yeah, you've turned.
So yeah, just seeing that, I think, would be fascinating.
No, it would be. And if you could meet somebody, you could sit down with a cup of tea, coffee, dinner with somebody, either from days of old, they're still with us, fact or fiction. Who would you like to sit down and have a cup of tea with?
Winston Churchill, and he can bring the drinks.
That would be a good night, wouldn't it?
I mean, probably, it's similar to that. Someone like Jeff Bezos, something like that. A person who I think is of great insight into the modern world. Who, forget the pun, but it's kind of got a bird's eye view of the world. And has just got the resource to be able to think literally outside of Earth and just sit down and just chat to a guy like that. Somebody who has become so big and successful that he's now challenging himself with things not of this earth. So yeah, just having a conversation with him. I've actually watched quite a lot of his talks and interviews, and I just find him, a really interesting person who's just got such a good insight on so many different things.
I think he would be fascinating. And with somebody like that, did he always know? Was there any moment that he doubted it was going to end up where it was, or was he also blown away with where it went? When he was sitting at that desk in that garage, did he sit there and say, one day I'm going to be the biggest in my chosen field on the planet, and I'm going to completely revolutionise the world of retailing, and I'm going to revolutionise the world of payment systems, and I'm going to, did he see the future and know it was coming, or was he blown away with a lot of other people that couldn't believe quite how it unrolled?
Yeah.
There was an interesting thing he said. He said when I told my sort of mom and dad about Amazon.com and that it's going to be an internet bookshop, that was the first thing. It was like the first thing that all his family and close people around him said was, "What's the internet?" That was the first thing, and it's just like, just imagine with that idea, all he knew was that the internet was growing by 18,000% a year, something ridiculous.
Yeah.
He didn't know much, but he knew that. He knew that books had the biggest number of things to sell. A typical bookstore had every thousands to say, or hundreds, but there were millions of books in circulation. So books, internet, but yeah, to have people not having absolutely no idea what you're on about, and still leaving a job on Wall Street to pursue it.
And it's interesting. I mean, they got their robots, haven't they? They just launched their robots, and that's another one where people really have no idea how that's going to work.
No.
It's an interesting point what you say, the fact of someone who has that money and that power and that foresight to say, I've thought about maybe redesigning a wheel.
Yeah.
So let's go and throw $57 billion at it just to see that ability to do something would be fascinating, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, just to pick his brain and just chat and Yeah, so
yeah.
I think.
Well, I must admit, given the way the conversation's turned, it doesn't surprise me that you picked out one of the most incredible entrepreneurs on the planet, because I guess that's kind of a lot of inspiration for you, and you know, in your own world, you're doing your own things. So, like I say, it didn't surprise me that was kind of where we ended up. I've really enjoyed the chat, Brad. It's been really, really good, really enjoyable, and I think to get kind of the inside track on how you do your things and how you think, I think will be of I
think it's fascinating to hear so much about what you've done at a young age. You know, that's the other thing, isn't it? You know, that hopefully, as we were saying, it'll inspire others to think, oh, actually, I can do something. I can change. Yeah. I can create change.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah,
exactly.
No, brilliant.
No, lovely. Yeah, cheers, Brad. That was absolutely fabulous. Really appreciate
thank you very much. Thank you, much appreciated.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. Not at all. Look after yourself, Brad. Cheers. So we had a conversation with Dr. Brad Thornton, and what an absolute star he turned out to be.
Amazing. I mean, that thing, obviously you know better than I do, but to be, what was it, European under-17s Taekwondo champion, and that dedication and commitment is obviously transferred into his business attitude.
I don't think it's a prerequisite. I think you can get passion and drive and desire come at you at different stages in your life. But when you understood the things he'd done as a younger person, you know, knowing when he was choosing his GCSEs, he wanted to be a dentist, and starting Taekwondo so young and having international success, it didn't surprise me that when he then said that as a FD, he was viewing dental practice to buy them and bought his dental practice at 26. It didn't come as a surprise to me.
No.
But also all the other entrepreneurial interests and businesses that he either started up or invested in or been involved in. He's a serious entrepreneur.
It's so casual about it. Yeah, that's what I love. Is that, well, yeah, you know, I did toothpaste that's now Boots or whatever. I can't remember what it was, but you know, there's a couple of things. I think, in a way, that there's something massively appealing, isn't there, about that relaxed confidence? Because we've all met arrogant.
Yeah.
What's it?
Oh, there's none of that. There's none of that there at all.
You know, stop telling me how brilliant you are. Whereas Brad was the reverse camp. You almost had to sort of tease his successes out of him.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he wasn't going, I've done this, I've done that. It's very fascinating.
I love that entrepreneurial trait, which is I feel relaxed and comfortable when I've got a lot of things on. When I've got lots of things that I can give my single focus to. It frees me up from the day-to-day drudgery of perhaps just having one business. And I can relate to that up to a point as well, in that we've got a number of different areas that we work on.
And not having to not proving it to anyone else except yourself.
He's just trying to be the best version of himself.
You know, he's being, as I think, you know, he's being best of the best for him.
Yes.
Not for anyone else, not to, you know, win an award, not to do this, not to be photographed, not to be all those other characteristics that we see, but just to say that, just for him to feel that he's being the best of best.
And when we sort of, you know, set about thinking about and setting up Dentology, I hoped it would be fun, enjoyable. There'd be some really useful business takeaways, and it might inspire people. And I think Brad's going to tick all those boxes.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a really
great lad. Really nice to speak to you.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.